Good evening, folks. We are now in session. We have a very special guest today. I'm so excited for her to be on the session with us. Her name is May Gnia Her. And May Gnia, for the audience, we're so happy to have you here. So,
thank you very much.
About yourself to
absolutely. Hello, audience. I'm so grateful to be here tonight to hang out with Toby and Lucky and Sancho and share a little bit about myself. I pretty much grew up here in Fresno, in West Fresno. Currently now live in Clovis. I'm a working professional, a mom of 4, and I'm just delighted to be able to be here and have a conversation and maybe share a little bit about what we all do here in this crazy town.
Nice. Yeah. We're missing not Lucky. We're missing Charles and Sam today. They couldn't be here. Charles is on vacation. Sam, he's just working way too hard. That guy, he's hustling. So he couldn't make it here today. So it's just me and Lucky that's going to scrutinize you today.
Sounds good.
And try to get some answers from you. You were born and raised here in the States, or
no? I was born in the refugee camp in Thailand.
Oh wow!
Came here when I was about 2, but I was pretty much grew up here in West Fresno.
Right.
So pretty much grew up here in Central Valley.
Central Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Never left, or this is where you kind of landed?
This is where I landed. I did leave the state for about a year, but then came back.
Wow. So you ran away from California and then came back?
Yeah, pretty much. Didn't like it. Went to the Midwest and realized that it was too cold and too humid, and I came back.
The Midwest, as in Minnesota.
As in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was a Packer fan for a year.
Oh, that's why.
Wow.
It was a pretty interesting time.
Was it a big difference as far as like Wisconsin and here?
Oh, absolutely. If you like greenery and lots of lakes and Packer fan 24/7, Wisconsin's where you should go.
So you like to shovel snow?
Oh man, that was hard. That was so hard.
How was it adjusting to the?
It was really hard. I didn't understand why in Wisconsin, as much snow as they had, why all their garages were detached. And
detached
then here,
from the house?
Detached from the house. So everybody's garage is like a driveway down in the back of the house. So in the snow time, I mean, you're dead trying to get out there to your car and then digging yourself out.
How big does it? I mean, how high does the snow get?
The highest I ever saw was I opened the front door and I couldn't see anything. It was probably about 8 feet of snow.
Way. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's very crazy.
Do you have to go out there and shovel it, or?
Pretty much. So if you live in a house, you have to shovel it because you're on property.
Right.
If you live in an apartment complex, they have maintenance people that do that. But my family lived in a house, so we were shoveling snow. I was only there for 1 winter, and that was enough for me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I can never picture you shoveling snow.
You're
from California, everything's melting.
Everything is melting.
It's a different lifestyle, huh?
Like, it definitely is.
Did you have to like warm up your car before you
Absolutely.
go anywhere, or?
Absolutely. So they take the entire word of antifreeze very seriously there. So I like us here.
So like living in Wisconsin, like did you have products here that like Asian products over there? Was there a big community there?
In Wisconsin, there was a good sized community of Southeast Asian, but nothing like California. We only had maybe 1 or 2 stores. You have products, but not this kind of variety, and definitely not this kind of products that we have here. Produce there costs an arm and a leg.
I bet.
So everyone there are meat eaters because it's cheaper. There's milk, so there's cows, there's all kinds of meat, but fresh produce. I mean, we used to. Us Californians here, we will send produce to a Wisconsin family. So.
Wow.
How did they like stay fresh? I mean, I'm pretty sure like let's say like what's that one thing you put on pho? Was it the bean sprout?
Bean sprouts.
Yeah, I mean, what would like a bag of that cost down there?
Oh, when I was living there, a bag of bean sprout was like $5-6.
Wow, it's like $1 over here.
It's
That's
$1
a big
here.
difference. Yeah.
And it's half the size.
No way.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting like the fresh one. You're actually getting one that's like the one that's inside the actual bag where they like, store it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So
crazy.
For the audience, we invited May Gnia to come on the show to just really. She has a significant story and really an upbringing and a leadership style and really connecting with the community on so many different levels. And we really wanted to highlight her story and her achievements. And I'm going to just kind of take it way back, May Gnia, just to let the audience know a little bit. Like, can you just share a little bit, like, your journey to America. Let's start with that. Like that's a beautiful thing, being Hmong, being a refugee. What is that story entail?
I think the story of the refugee is very similar across all us Southeast Asian. But my family story is not any different from anybody else. You know, we were all part of the Secret War. My father was in the military, as with a lot of our Lao family as well. But we landed in the camp in probably 1976 in the Ban Vinai camp in Thailand. I was born in the camp. And then, so my memory is obviously not very, very vivid because I was just a young child.
Sure.
But we came to America in 1980, in the summer of 1980, and we actually landed in Missoula, Montana. So,
Why of all places?
well, at the time, you know, a lot of churches sponsor families. So wherever there was a sponsored a sponsored family. So we were in Missoula, Montana, and then in the early 80s, without the use of internet technology, people tend to find each other. So somehow my parents found out that Fresno was the place to be, and we ended up coming here in probably about 1983, and we just never left. Yeah.
In our culture, it was kind of like that, right? When one family moved to a certain city, then another family would follow, right? Like, oh, you're going over there? Well, let me go too, you know. But, you know, being the daughter of a captain, of a pilot, right?
Yeah.
How was it like growing up in Fresno and coming over here and, you know, since your dad was a military man? Yeah.
You know what? We were treated, I mean, we grew up in poverty, as a lot of us. Everyone in the community grew up in poverty, but my dad was very, very well revered in the community. So, as the saying, my dad and my mom would always say, because you are my daughter, you will never go hungry and you would never be homeless, because if you just use your dad's name, somebody will always feed you, clothe you, or you know, give you a place to sleep. And so it was very much, we kind of knew that a lot of people would come over to the house and would always want to talk to him. So we knew of his stature in the community. So it was kind of nice. I mean, it was nice knowing that this is your dad.
Did you like ever get annoyed sometime? You know, as a kid, you're like, "Man, why are all these people over my house all the time?" You know.
My dad, as with a lot of the men at the time, he had multiple wives. So my dad had 3 wives. My mom is the first wife.
No way.
So he was hardly home at our house, hardly ever home. But I mean, it's busy. Like, he always kept busy. He was always kept busy. But in the community, it was good because people kind of knew who you were. I think as I was growing up, and then he moved away. So my dad and my stepmom, my other 2 stepmoms, they actually moved to Hickory, North Carolina, Morganton, Hickory area. So as we grew up, people would always say, "Hey, you're so-and-so's daughter." And so we would get that all the time.
Right.
And for me, as a young adult, I got to the point where I'm kind of like, "No, you're mistaking me."
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want to answer questions.
Yeah, you know, like, you know what? I'm my own person,
Right.
you know? Like, I'm trying to make my own journey, you know, and I don't want to live in that, you know? And I think a lot of kids coming from Thailand and Laos and stuff, and where their parents are significant in the military, you know, they find it hard to kind of adapt.
Right.
And like, man, you know what? It's very different. You
I
know,
think it was definitely harder for the sons.
Yes.
Like there's such a patriarchal, stature there. There's much harder for the sons. For the daughters, there was just an expectation of, "Oh, you're so and so's daughter. That's great. We know, who your parents are." But for the son, definitely. So I have 3 older brothers, and they definitely struggle with that identity, and they struggle with the living up to their dad's legacy expectation. Yeah.
And it's really setting the tone for the sibling. The 3 brothers, they probably went to work early, and long nights. And so we talk about sacrificing maybe even education at that time, and really just going straight to work and doing that. That's really hard.
It is definitely hard.
Yeah.
Did you knew at a young age that your path in life, what you wanted to do, or as you were navigating through, because you were growing up in this society, you have to kind of live in 2 different worlds, right? You have to live in the culture, and then after that you have to adapt to American society. Did you
I come from a big family. There was 9 siblings in my family, and I was the 6th of 9. So I kind of felt like I grew up in this large family where number 5, number 6 were kind of forgotten, which kind of worked to my advantage.
Yeah.
So I got to see my older siblings and all of the mistakes that they made. And I knew, like, hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because my parents would yell at them for certain
Right.
things. And so I was a very quiet kid growing up, super quiet, but very observant. So did I know what I wanted to do in life? Absolutely not. But I made a lot of mistakes, and got to watch my siblings make a lot of mistakes. So I knew some of the things that I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for us, for my journey, it's a little different. So right out of high school, I went to work. So in high school, back in those days, they still taught financial education in high school during those days. And we had a bank come on campus that was looking for kids that were in the senior year that could work as part-time tellers. So I was one of the lucky ones that got chosen for that program. So right out of high school, I ended up working at a bank that no longer exists, Washington Mutual. So that's how long I go back. And within the first summer, right after high school, my bank manager came up to me and was like, "Hey, May Gnia, you speak Hmong?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, you speak English really well. Can you translate?" And I'm like, "Sure." So he told me that there was a Hmong family trying to buy a house and they needed mortgage translation. So before I knew it, I was in the mortgage department translating. And then within a month or two, I knew the whole process because I was translating and helping these families. So my branch manager ended up moving me into the mortgage department. And within a short period of 6 months, I went from translating application to doing it all by myself, helping the loan officers package it, sending it off to the underwriter. And then the underwriter would have all these questions. And then after about 6-7 months, I was doing the underwriting for these Hmong families.
Wow.
And then after about a year, I started drawing docs, for escrow when escrow was closing. And I started to see all the different pieces of the loan process and the paperwork. And then that old document that used to be called the HUD-1, I don't even know what it's called nowadays, but that's the document at the end where you see the breakdown of who makes what money and who makes how much and how much the realtor makes,
Right.
the seller, the buyer, and the transaction and the bank.
Right.
And so I started asking questions. I started asking my branch manager, like, "Hey, these people make really good money." And so I was super young. I was probably 18, 19 at the time because I was going to Fresno City College. He's like, "Yeah, you interested?" And then long and behold, before I turned 20, I was a licensed realtor. I started with Guaranteed Real Estate.
Wow.
So shout out to all my realtor friends that helped me out back in those days. And I didn't know anybody else in my community at the time. And
That
learned,
was doing what you were doing.
was doing
Right.
real estate. So I dropped out of college, became a realtor, started selling. Along the way, got married, and then by the time my first child was born in 2003, my friend and I from Sacramento, we formed a brokerage. So we were doing all kinds of work, and
Wow.
we were selling, we were doing mortgage loans, and it was, we were young, stupid, and we made a lot of money. And it was a really, really different time. And 90% of our clients weren't Southeast Asian because
Really?
back then a lot of the Southeast Asians were just starting to get into becoming homeowners.
Homeowners,
Yeah.
right.
And then, as the market shifted, so one day I was a small business owner. I was self-employed, and I was doing real estate and mortgage loan. And then my banking relationship manager from Wells Fargo called me, no endorsements here, from Wells Fargo, and says, "Hey, we're doing this API Women's Summit. Would you like to attend? And you're an API woman, and we were wondering if you could sit on the panel and talk about how you became a small business owner." And I'm like, "Sure." And I was probably 24, 25 at the time.
Wow.
Actually, no, I was 25 because I had my daughter already. And I'm like, "Sure." So I ended up at this summit. And then at this summit, I learned and I met so many people from the SCORE organization that does small business development,
Right.
from the SBA and all these other
yep.
people like this, the local CDFI, and all these people and these nonprofit. And that's how I got introduced to nonprofit.
Yeah.
And then after the summit, I got a call, and the call was like, "Hey, we're putting together this program to help women get into small business. Would you like to come and volunteer and teach?"
Right.
So I was working. I was a young mom by the time I had 2 kids, and I was running my business, and then I was volunteering after hours for various organizations, from SCORE to the EDC to the United Way, and they were putting together programs for economic development. So that was my first brush of nonprofit, and that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I found that I love teaching the aspect of business and helping people be correctly licensed and permitted to do business.
So you did like a roundabout
I
way to
did.
come back down to education, because at that time when you left high school, right, you kind of went, you know what, I'm gonna go try this, and it kind of went from one thing to the next. It led you to the next journey, right?
Yeah. When I got out of high school, my only goal was to get my family out of the project. That was my only goal. And I wanted to work because I wanted to be able to pull my family out of the project. So because I worked, I was able to help my mom pay rent on a regular house, and we finally moved out of the project.
So it was that
It was that
basically
drive.
driving force that said, you know what, I'm gonna do what I need to take
I
in
need
order
to-
to get out, and it opened so much doors.
Yeah. So I did that. And then very quickly, I got to know a lot of different nonprofits
Yeah.
in town that did economic development to
Financial.
social services to financial literacy.
Yeah.
And then when the market crashed in 2008, 2009, I had the opportunity to go work for the United Way. And that really stemmed from my years
What
of
is that,
relationship.
the United Way?
So the United Way, Fresno Madera counties, it used to just be Fresno County, but in 2012, we also took
merged.
over Madera County.
Yeah.
United Way is a large nation. Every county has its own, every state has its own, but they are a network of thousands around the world now too, where they used to be called the community chest because their whole purpose was to fund programs in the community that were either one underlooked or did not exist. And our whole purposes really was just funding allocations and making sure that there were programs that filled in the gap of different services outside of social services and public assistance.
Yeah.
And so with United Way, we developed tons of different programs. And then United Way would tend to develop a program, and then they would hand it off to a community partner
CBOs.
to actually run it, a CBO.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to work for the United Way. But in the relationship with United Way, very shortly I became their vice president of community impact here in Fresno Madera County. And I did that for a really long time. And then met all these wonderful people in the world of nonprofits. And then I also, because when my children were about 3 and 4, I enrolled them at Stone Stoup for programs. So that's how I became known with Stone Stoup. I was a parent at Stone Stoup for a long time. And then when I started working...
what is a Stone Stoup for the audience that is
Yeah.
listening? It's like, what is that, and what is your guys' mission? What do
Stone
you guys
Stoup is
do?
awesome. So Stone Stoup is a nonprofit here in Fresno. It was originally started as a refugee resettlement organization in the late 80s, early 90s, became a full-fledged 501c3, which is a designation for nonprofit, in 1996. Our founder is Kathleen Garabed, and the story of how Stone Stoup Fresno came about was Kathleen was working at the time as a program manager at Wesley Church. And one day, a very young 8-year-old Khmer boy came up to her in her office, put a gun on her desk and says, "Hey, the Khmer gangs are trying to recruit me to do their next hit. And I don't want to do their hit, and I need help."
Yeah, and at that time, that Southeast Asian gang was big in that
It was
area.
big.
Big,
Was this over on that area where
Yeah.
it is now?
6th Street.
Oh wow,
Fresno
yeah,
State,
6th Street.
Right by 6th Street, yeah. And so that's kind of what gave birth to the concept of Stone Stoup. Kathleen Garabed really saw the need for services and intervention for Southeast Asian families. And then Stone Stoup came about, and we still remain at the same location. We've been serving this community and that neighborhood in Fresno County for over 30 years.
Makes you wonder, like with all these kids that are growing up in the hood, like how that story started, right? Like,
Yeah.
they were kind of forced to join the gang, right? Forced to do these things. And, from the streets view, they look at it, oh, that's a code, right? And then some kids, it's unfortunate that they get caught up in that stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's, Asian gangs have definitely, since the early 2000s, have definitely, I think, has calmed down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
But the need and poverty still strickens a lot of our families.
Yeah, it's still a burden, and I think there's still some of that generational trauma and the things that they still
Absolutely.
endured, and to see their uncle or brothers, older brothers in incarceration right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely make a huge impact. So when you went to Stone Stoup, and I hear you that United Way was a really an organization that really opened up doors and networking and building friendship. And can you tell the audience also, like, when did you felt that I need to take my work or professional career to another level? And did you know that the nonprofit sector was a place where you wanted to be?
Not at all. I have to say, until I became a volunteer,
Oh,
I really didn't understand how a nonprofit works, but I always knew of nonprofits. As a young child, we would get the toys from Toys for Tots.
right.
Right? The Salvation Army would come around to the schools, to the churches, and give our family clothes. So I knew they existed, but I didn't know how they operated. But I never, and I always joke around and tell people like, I think I was more of like an accidental nonprofit leader because through my work as a small business owner, I got to know nonprofits, and then later on, I actually took a break from the time my youngest was born to be a stay-at-home mom. So I have 4 kids, and life got a little chaotic. So I took a break, and then during that break, I've always kept a relationship with Stone Stoup. I served on their board previously as well, and they called me up and was like, "Hey, we're looking for an executive director and see if you might be interested." So I marched down the path of, okay, let's see what this is going to look like. And so in 2018, the summer of 2018, towards the end of that fiscal year, I came on to Stone Stoup as their executive director. But I really think that I bring a much different perspective on nonprofits.
Sure.
Because I bring the perspective of a small business owner and taking care of the organization from an operational point of view and a profitability point of view.
Right.
Versus always what services do we have. So I'm definitely one of those leaders that came in and says, okay, we're not doing X, Y, Z anymore because it doesn't make sense for our bottom line.
Right.
And it's just been the world of nonprofits.
I knew it like you. I should worry about the bottom line. I knew it was something about you when I met you.
But the nonprofit world has treated me extremely, extremely kindly.
Right.
So people, I don't have a degree in education.
Child education.
Or development or anything like that. I actually have a degree in business management. So I really truly feel like the board of directors chose me to come in to really manage the organization. And I really enjoyed it.
And I think sometimes they just want to have someone with a different mindset coming in, But also, what's unique about your experience is your work at United Way. You were kind of in the back end, giving grants and all these different, support to these CBOs. But now you're on the opposite end where, hey, how are we going to get money to sustain or, our organization? So for the audience, can you kind of share, how do nonprofits really upkeep with everything? Their staff, the overhead costs?
Absolutely.
Is Stone Stoup funded by grants or state, allocations?
Absolutely. I think the one area of difference that I brought to Stone Stoup Fresno is my years of business plan writing, my years of being able to analyze a business plan, financials, and looking at where we are and then making projections. For all the nonprofits out there, I really think that it's truly important that you look at business majors as well and seasoned business majors to bring them in as part of your leadership team. So today, Stone Stoup Fresno is funded by Department of Education here in the state of California. We are funded by private grants, foundation. Wow. We have a very small pool of funders. Donors. And that's a whole different, talk on that. Yeah. But we're doing really good. We're doing really good. The organization, when I came into the organization, we were pulling in about $600,000 a year.
Wow. Which
for a nonprofit it's good money, but it's not a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're looking from a small scale, having a certain amount of staff, and that's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Even when we were at Firm, when I was at Firm, we were just under $1 million, and it was really hard to really upkeep and sustain for a little bit. So the private donors, the small little checks that come to your door, those are meaningful.
Very meaningful.
Yeah.
But even through this pandemic, this current fiscal year, when the fiscal year ends, we will be just shy of $2 million.
Wow.
So it's grown quite a bit. Our staffing has grown quite a bit, but we're hiring.
Yeah.
Anybody who needs a job, give me a call.
For the audience out there, if you have any skill sets, you just want to get involved with Stone Stoup, I think May Gnia would definitely use some help in the child development area. Yeah,
we're looking for teachers. We're looking for program managers. We're looking for case managers. So, hit me up if someone needs a job.
Yeah.
But it's grown quite a bit. It's changed quite a bit. The one thing I tell people is that when I came into Stone Stoup, I decided to recreate Stone Stoup to really support the working families.
Right.
So our programs are all year round.
Nice.
Our programs support our working families so that they can get to work. And then our program is centered around what I call is like the life cycle of the family in general. So we're not just looking at the parents or the adults, the young parent or the child themselves, but we're really looking at what is it that this family needs to be successful. So, and then we also changed our mission because of that change.
Oh, really?
So our mission is very simple because our mission is just simply to inspire children and to help families realize their full potential in America.
Wow.
I did notice that when I was on the Stone Stoup website, that they have a lot of what is it, preschool, right? Like they do preschool over there, and then they have a lot of resources for parents. Because as parents, when you have a kid, nobody teaches you how to be a parent, how to be a mom, how to be a dad. So and we see parents think like, man, who do I turn to teach me what I do? Because I'm having trouble with my son right now. He's a teenager, right?
You might need to drop him off in my.
He's a teenager.
No, he's a teenager, and when you raise a son or a kid, right? And you have it set to a certain way, right? And all of a sudden they turn 12, they change. Like what?
They know more than daddy at that
Yeah,
time.
they know
He
more
has
than
no
daddy.
idea what he signed up for.
Yeah, he had no idea, and we were telling, okay.
We have a program for teenagers, and I'd love to share with you guys our program.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go for it.
So let me show you my cool shirt first.
Okay, yes.
Yes. So
Yes, for the audience.
For the audience right
My
there.
Get
shirt.
ready.
let's see. Can you guys read it?
Yes,
Yeah,
choose
choose your lifestyle.
Awesome.
Wow,
I
like it.
that's awesome.
So growing up poor, growing up Southeast Asian, growing up in this community, and growing up with zero mentors. Like we didn't have any mentors. My resources, my best mentors were just watching my older siblings and not doing what they did so that I wouldn't get yelled at. That was my mentorship. But having not gone the traditional route, not going direct, I went to college, but I only survived 1 year. And then became a small business owner. So I was pretty much a small business owner the majority of my professional career. And then finding my way through that and making a lot of mistakes. And I tell people that because I was 23 when I first got audited by the IRS.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, what is this?
Yeah, what's going on?
So I made a ton of mistakes. So I'm a mentor right now. I'm part of the United Southeast Asian Association mentorship for students at Fresno City College.
Yeah, Fresno
You
City.
see it.
Yeah, you see it.
And the one thing I've learned in my 22, 23 years of working professionally and being a small business owner is when it comes to our youth nowadays, because I think our generation, we were very driven to succeed because we had zero.
It was survival.
Yeah.
It was survival.
It was survival,
You had to succeed. And our children's generation doesn't have that drive. Majority of them don't. And so when I mentor young people now, I tell them, I'm very transparent, and I tell them like, hey, I went this route. It's non-traditional. College isn't for everyone. So for all the educators out there, I mean, truthfully, college is not for everyone.
Yeah.
If you work hard, you're always going to make a life. No problem. But I want all of you guys to truly make a living. Enjoy that life. And so I'm very backward. I have 4 children. I have a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Oh, you went through that teenager
I
year
did.
then, huh?
And I teach my kids the same thing I teach my mentors, my mentees. And I tell them, like, you guys lack so much ambition. I don't tell them that, but that's in my mind. And I tell them, I said, I want you to first choose your lifestyle because you're way too comfortable. Like if we don't know what lights your fire, it's really hard for us to move you.
Right.
So my message to them is choose your lifestyle. And what that means is I actually sit down with them and go through this whole worksheet of where do you currently live with your mom, dad, roommates, whatever it is, situation. What does that cost you? And if you don't know, there's a homework sheet that you have to go ask your parents.
Sure.
What's your mortgage? What's your rent? What's
Expenses,
your utilities?
yeah.
How much does it cost to live here? And then they come back and I say, okay, now that you know where you currently live, I want you to choose the kind of lifestyle you want to live when you're older.
Right.
So choosing your lifestyle means pick your house, pick your car. I saw that car, right? Pick your house, pick your car, pick where you want to live, pick the kind of lifestyle you want to live, pick how many vacations you want. Because everything that is tangible is also quantifiable. You can put a number to it. So at the end of the day, you say, okay, I want to live in this neighborhood. This house is 400,000. This car's going to cost me 60 grand. I want to be able to eat out sometime, buy cool clothes, have the latest phones. And so you put a number to it and you realize that in order for you to live the lifestyle that you choose to live, it's going to cost you $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month. And then you multiply that by 12, and then like, okay, I have to have this much money in any given 12 months to choose my own lifestyle. And so I tell my mentees, I say, once you quantify the lifestyle that you want, there are only so many career choices and so many business choices that would afford you that kind of lifestyle.
Right.
And then once you narrow that down, then you could say, okay, from these choices, what most interests me?
Right.
And then you focus on that. So I've been teaching kids a very backward way of living by choosing their lifestyle first. And if you just choose your lifestyle, everything else kind of makes sense. So I use the example of after the worksheet, everybody usually tends to end up around 80 to 100,000 when they choose their lifestyle.
Wow.
And I'll take that and I'll take them to the BLS.gov website, which is Bureau of Labor Statistic, and I'll filter it down, right? And I'll say, okay, of all the careers that are reported, that is 80 to 100,000, what do you see?
Yeah.
And you don't see a lot of the career choices that a lot of our young people are pursuing.
Right.
So then we use that as a teaching moment, and we said, okay, not everybody wants to be a doctor, not everybody wants to be a nurse, not everybody wants to do engineering, things like that.
Right.
But there are other options that you can choose, and all you have to do is focus on it. And a lot of those options are more career tech training.
Right.
They're not traditional.
Yeah, the world's changing.
The world is
they're going
changing. They're not engineering doctors and stuff like that. If you want to study STEM, you need to go to college.
Right.
But if you don't want to study STEM and you want to be like me when I was younger and be a self-employed small business owner, you definitely can. Yeah, you definitely can. But no matter what path, you're going to have to work hard.
As an entrepreneur, I think it's a different pathway, right, for an entrepreneur, because you have to have instilled in yourself tenacious. You got to be ambitious.
Absolutely.
You got to know that you're going to fail. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to pick yourself up from that and then keep going, because
absolutely.
success as an entrepreneur is it's not overnight. And it could take years, right? You see people succeed. They try since high school. They don't succeed until they're 35, 45 or so. And you hear stories, and
Absolutely.
and I think for people that go into entrepreneurship, the reality of it is you're going to fail, but you need to be okay with that.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, and it's definitely, not everyone have the kind of tenacity, the thick skin for continual failure.
Yeah.
So for my mentees, I'm always telling them, like, I kind of get to know them. I kind of get a feel, because when someone's a total book smart kid,
right.
And then when someone is kind of like me, that we're a bit more adventurous, I'm like, I need to try certain things to get out of a situation, or I need to make money now because I can't wait. I don't even have money to go to college to start with, right?
Right.
So you get a feel for them, and that's kind of my experience has allowed me to work with young people of multiple different backgrounds, and really kind of just sit there and just kind of try to help them figure out what is unique and niche to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think the education system now that we have kind of cater to just one side of the equation versus like taking kids like entrepreneur or kids that don't want to go to college, and saying, hey, you know what, there's wood shop, there's, like tech school, there's this and that, they're not really pushing that, but they're pushing these kids to go to college.
Makes me think of Duncan.
Yeah.
We went to Duncan Poly,
Right.
The career driven.
I think colleges are becoming a lot more receptive to career tech education, or CTE. There's more and more options now in the last, I would say, 4 years than there ever has been. The problem now for me is getting these young people to know that there are options out there. For whatever the reason, maybe we need to do some TikTok videos on career tech.
They want to be Instagram famous, and stuff.
Because when they think of, when the parents say go to college, they're thinking like, oh my gosh, math, science, English, and then it really derails them. But I wish the more young people knew that college isn't for everyone, and it's okay. And there are so many different options out there. I'll give you an example. So one of my good friend during the pandemic, he had a 19-year-old that was going to Fresno City College. And during the pandemic, school went virtual, and this kid could not focus on virtual. So instead of the traditional virtual, he decided to do a plumbing and HVAC certification. So by summer of 2021,
Yay, HVAC.
yeah, he was certified.
Nice.
And so he started working. Companies were hiring him left and right for plumbing and HVAC.
You recruit for Toby. Toby owns an HVAC company.
Oh my
That's
goodness,
why.
Yeah,
yeah.
I own an HVAC
That's
company.
awesome.
Right.
We need more of that.
Yeah.
That skill is so important.
And
That's why when I met you, I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you have this energy about you that's like, oh man, you didn't go the traditional route.
did
There was
not go
something
the
about you
traditional
that's
route.
more like tenacious, more like ambitious, and you could feel it. Your energy is very
I did
strong.
not get my degree until 2012. And the only reason why I got my degree was because people would ask me to go and speak, and they would say, hey, send me your bio.
Right.
And then I would send them my bio, and then they would email me back and say, hey, did you forget to leave out your education? And I'm like, you know what? I haven't finished my education. Oh, well, that's okay. But then it became like this thing in the back of their minds, right? And so I'm like, you know what?
That is the mindset,
Yeah,
right?
it's the
If you don't
mindset.
go to college,
Right.
you're not considered successful.
See,
Right.
I've seen where people have tons of letter
Right.
behind their name, comma, MA, whatever,
Yes.
but they don't fit that description
They
of
don't.
that as well. So
Right.
it makes me think like there's not the right way. You get this persona and thought that, oh yeah, you have a master's degree, but man, you're not doing master work. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you can't even integrate in the other work that you want to do. Right?
My father-in-law used to always say, you have all these letters after your name. You're only book smart, but you're
Yeah.
not life smart.
Life's
Right.
Yeah.
right.
And so, but
That's what's missing nowadays,
that's what's
though.
missing
The
is that common
experience.
sense and
The common sense and the experience,
Absolutely.
right? Like,
Yes.
the school when you go to school now, right? I see it in my son too. Like they make you memorize these things, right?
Right.
But you're reading it, you're memorizing. But once you leave that grade or you finish that test, you forget about it.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's it.
And then it's that experience that stick, you
Yeah.
know. And,
Yeah.
man,
The experience is so much more valuable.
Right.
So that's why I tell my kids, like, hey, if you don't want to go to college, it's okay. Like, we will find you a path. We will help you find that path. And it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It truly isn't.
And you mentioned you've been a mentor at the Lucia Club.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you feel about? I know that's predominantly Southeast Asian
Mm-hmm.
kids, right? But does it make you feel some type of way that, man, do we need more Southeast Asian leaders or mentors in that space to help uplift the young folks? Like, do you feel that's a value now that you're in it?
I definitely feel that it's a value, but most importantly, I wish that we also had a way to connect to their parents.
Oh,
Because honestly, those kids could be my kids.
Sure.
So their parents are only like my age.
yeah,
But what we are missing is the parent piece so that the parents can convey to the kids like, hey, the old saying that when other people lecture your kids, they listen more, right?
right.
And we're missing that connection because we have them in a captive space and then they go home and it's like we lose them. And I wish we had that relationship where we can just say, hey, parents, we're doing this.
Right, right.
And if you just encourage your kids to not listen to you because they don't want to, but they just come and participate.
Right.
Yeah, it would be so valuable.
Right, yeah, because even when I was with UCF for a little bit, the graduation ceremony or the end of school year
end of
event,
school.
right? I didn't see a lot of parents,
Nope.
and it takes me back. And I used to tell my parents all the time, and I guess English was not the language. And when we went to school, well, now that I see it, like I see younger parents going to it. But I wish that there were more Southeast Asian
Yeah.
parents involved with that component, because I think that's the emotional bonding that I think can make a lasting impact on that child.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to be an involved parent,
Yeah.
like from day one.
Yeah.
in preschool, that the programs you guys have, I mean, when you get to the kids that young, right, and you kind of set them on a mindset to kind of learn, right, and love learning, I think that sticks with them for a long time. When you take that away from them, they kind of don't want to learn, right? They want to give up, and we kind of have to encourage them, even though it's like, come on, let's go, like it's tiring sometimes, right? But you still have to encourage them.
Absolutely. I think learning, for me, learning was definitely not traditional, and learning was, and it still is lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, I think that when you talk about earlier, when you had mentioned that you were smart, but in other ways, I think intelligence should not be measured
Yes.
by letter
Right.
grades.
Right.
You know, we can't do that. It's not fair.
Yes.
And intelligence is so many different other things. And unfortunately, the world is cruel, and majority of the world tends to see my value based on what letters behind my name,
Right.
or
right.
my value based on what degree is hanging on my wall.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate, but that's also very discouraging for a lot of the young people that we know.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, "Oh no, I can't do this, or
Right.
I can't do that."
Yeah, it's like the expectation is so high where they hit that ceiling, and it's so hard to climb up. You
Yeah.
know? You know, I wanted to take it back a little bit about the Stone Stoup program. You mentioned people can, the young moms can bring their kids into the preschool. Is there a time frame? What is the population that you guys normally serve now? Is it just Southeast Asian, or is it just a mix of different race and groups?
No, so we live up to our name, Stone Stoup Fresno, because the concept of Stone Stoup, the folklore was everyone coming together around this communal pot, bringing a little bit of their own
Sure.
spices and vegetables.
Right.
And we are truly that pot right now. So we are extremely diverse.
Wow.
The kids in our demographics are, we've got about 30% Asian. We've got probably about a 25% Hispanic.
Wow.
We've got a probably 10-15% Black American, Caucasian. And then we have the remaining of that small portion are newer refugees.
We still have our Syrian refugees there?
We do. We have
Oh.
our Syrian refugees, recent refugees from Ukraine,
Oh, wow.
Afghan, and we also have newer immigrants from like China.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot of families that speak Mandarin and Cantonese.
So you do have staff that speak the native language as well, those specific languages?
We do. So not all the languages,
Oh, sure.
but we do have staff. We have about 6 different languages on it at Stone Stoup Fresno.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
We
what-
could always use more.
Yeah. So you mentioned helping these young families get to work and dropping their kids. What are the time frames to do
Yeah.
this?
So our preschool program is probably the best preschool program I know in Fresno County. And let me tell you why. So I designed it to help the working family. So if you want to enroll your kids, you definitely can. We still have a couple of slots available. You can bring your child as early as 7 a.m. and you can pick them up as late as 5:30, 5:40, so that the parents can actually get to work on time and pick up the child at on time. And it's year round, so we don't take summer break because working parents don't take summer break.
Wow.
So it's pretty phenomenal. But the best part is, and we're going to bring this back. So right now we're slowly coming out of this pandemic, and there's still a lot of nuances that we're trying to work out with a lot of different vendors. But pre-pandemic, before the shutdown, our preschool is truly catered to the community.
Right.
So we have a chef, and our chef, instead of like your typical pancakes and sausage, our kids don't eat that.
Right.
You know, Asian kids don't
Totally.
eat that. So we would make things like rice porridge,
Yes.
scrambled eggs for the kids, and then during lunch we made pho. We would do pad thai. We would do stir
So
fry.
if I'm hungry, I'm in the
You
the
come to
area.
Stone
I'll come
Stoup.
by and get some
Yeah.
something to eat, huh?
And we're very mindful about the families that the culture of the families
Sure.
that come in.
Yeah.
So you know, we would make different dishes and introduce them to the kids so that all the kids felt included in that.
Right.
We're very mindful about our families that are vegetarians, that don't eat pork, that don't eat meat in general.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that we also cater towards that, and we introduce new foods to our kids. So over time, our parents would bring kids to the preschool program simply because they knew that the kids would be eating foods that they have seen at home.
Right. Right.
And of course, you know, we still have the basic chicken nuggets. Everybody eats chicken nuggets, so.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I mean, where can you go, audience, to get help, support, but also eat your cultural foods? You
Right.
know? And the chef, is he like staff there that does it, or just volunteer? You
So it's a
mentioned?
third-party staff. So
Third-party
it's a
staff.
vendor.
Okay, vendor.
And he is the coolest staff. I mean, he's our vendor, but he's very much like family. And he takes our recipes. So we make sure, you know, it's fit within the USDA triangle and all that stuff.
Wow.
But he literally takes our recipes and says, okay, we're going to do this to it. And our kids love it.
Man, he must be talented to be able to make
Yeah.
all
All
types
that.
of.
Yeah.
He's a very
food,
talented
you know?
person, very talented, and he listens very well.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. And when we asked the vendor to cater to our community, they stepped up and says, "Yeah, we'll do it because we want to make sure that these kids also eat."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see it from various states now. I mean, Fresno is probably one of the most diverse
It is.
city
Yeah.
in all of America. We have so many different cultures, and I think the education system and all that, even hopefully they bring on that concept to the valley, because
Right.
you're right, the parents feel more included. They feel like their kids are understanding more, and even like something that they may think is so small, like this Laotian meal,
Yeah.
that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And an impact on that.
We have parents that will tell us things like, "My son wants to come to school because he wants to eat lunch."
Yeah.
And he's never wanted to eat lunch or eat other kind of foods. And then we have parents that will say things like, "Can we take leftover home?"
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are rules around that, so we don't. But I mean, I wish we could. I truly wish that we can just package it up and give it to families and say, "Take it." Yeah.
It's hard to kind of juggle, right?
Yeah.
Like you're there, you're like, oh man, I wish we could, but then I can't because the rules, and you're trying to lead, and then these families are following, and then you can
Right.
only do so much
Right.
to help, but you're still providing a service for them that's going to help them assimilate to the culture. So.
Yeah. So aside from preschool, we do health and human services. We have programs that do job skill development,
Oh wow.
green energy training, so solar training.
Oh.
We literally have a program that if they're over 18, they can learn how to install solar. They learn basic electrician, and then there's also job placement to help for them. And everyone that has
Wow.
come through that program has been extremely successful
Nice.
Wow.
because the network of for-profit businesses that come and hire these people that have finished the program. They're large installers here in Fresno, and they're coming to us because they know that these guys have gone through the training, and these ladies, and they know safety, they know OSHA, they have CPR certification, they know how to use the tools, they've been on a mock roof, so it's not new to them.
So it's not a traditional
Yeah.
education in a sense.
It's not a
right?
traditional. It's truly CTE, but in a much shorter time frame. It's only 2 weeks.
Wow,
It's only
really?
2 weeks, yeah.
Man, it must be intense then. It's only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It is pretty intense, and not everyone lasts the 2 weeks. But for those that do make it to the end of the 2 weeks, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. The last time we checked, I think the average starting rate was like $22 to $24.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
in the industry, construction industry right now, I mean, they bumped it up to about 22,
Yeah.
24, 25, somewhere around there. So anybody that wants to get into the construction field,
Yeah.
it's starting pay is great, and education,
It
you don't
is.
really need much. As long as you know how to use the tools and you show up to work,
That's right.
you're going to get a job anywhere.
Showing up is the most important part.
Yeah.
It's showing up and just, sticking it through.
Yeah.
This program's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you think about a young person, 18, 19 years old, getting that training, making 20 something bucks an hour. Well, your mom is very proud of you,
Absolutely.
right? And you
Yeah.
can do so much. And then with time, we talk about earlier, experience and intelligence and learning the craft, right? And you could be a supervisor one day at 24, just like yourself when you started
Yeah.
that broker business.
It's pretty fascinating, but not enough. The opportunity is there, but as we all know, not enough people take the opportunity.
I think it just needs to be pointed, right? Like, some people are looking, and, like nowadays you see people kind of like, man, what do I want to do? And they don't have any idea, right?
Yeah.
And so it's up to our generation, kind of like, you know what? Try this route. Try this route. This is what I did, right?
Right.
And, we had a previous guest, Henry, came on board, and he put it really well, where he's saying, you know what, the path is already set for you. You just got to pick one, find out which one you want, and then it's already set. Just follow.
That's right.
Just follow.
Choose your lifestyle
Yeah.
and just determine what kind of lifestyle you want to live.
Right.
Yeah.
You now that you're in this role as exec director for Stone Stoup and really taking the helm, do you see gaps in the education world that you're in? Like, do you see that maybe there's areas that we can improve it as a community?
Oh man, I think one of the biggest gap that I see is not so much the education institution, but it's the income gap.
Oh,
So
I see.
the income, so like us here, well, we're working parents. and our children will not have the same kind of leverage that we had.
Sure.
And so then there's this huge discrepancy of do you go to college or do you not go to college?
Right.
And then for the ones that do want to go to college, the opportunity is not there. For the ones that for the parents that can't afford it now, the opportunity is there. And then there are a lot of the young people now that will sit there and say, well, this school is going to cost this much, and by the time I'm done, I'll be X amount of dollars in student loan debt. So for me, what I've seen is this huge discrepancy in affordability, and affordability for higher education. That has, I know, deterred a handful of a lot of young people from wanting to go to college. I think the institutions, they keep raising the tuition fee,
Yes.
but for the most part, like you mentioned, there is a pathway and they just need to stick to it,
Right.
find the pathway that best resonate with them, but it's getting into the higher education that is just so costly.
I think at that age, right, when you're straight out of high school, like you were mentioning, I felt the same way. When you get out of college, or not college, in high school, you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you don't know. You just finished, 12 years of school, and then you remember, stuff that the school taught you, but then they didn't really teach you how to
Right.
pay taxes, how to, go and find your way, how to
Budget
apply the
management.
skills, budget
Right.
management.
Yeah.
They didn't teach you the skills that you
They
really
sure
need
didn't.
to exist in the world, and so these kids that are coming out of college, they feel lost, and so they go to
Definitely.
college just because their friends are going to college, and then they take a degree that is irrelevant to
Irrelevant, yeah.
what they're going to do. So when they
Oh my
graduate,
goodness, yes.
right, they're in debt,
Right.
and then they end up going to a career pathway that's not even what they went to school for.
Well,
Right.
even another thing is like going to school because you made your parents happy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, like young folks just needs to go where they're happy with, so and that way they don't have any resentment towards that. And I've seen a lot of my friends go to school,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, I don't know why I even got this degree because I'm not even doing anything with it. The
Right.
parents are asking them too, how come you didn't get a job with your degree? Well, I really don't like doing that work, so that's the challenging part with this new generation too.
Did
It
you
is.
have that experience where you were like, you know what, I have to go to school to kind
Pressure.
of like the pressure that you
Yeah.
dealt with? I mean, how did you decide, like, you know what, forget all this, I'm gonna go my own route?
I didn't. I really felt like my parents forgot about me.
Oh, it's coming out now.
Yeah, but it's okay because then I kind of had to figure things out myself. I never felt the pressure of go to college. But in all truth, in that statement, go to college, I think that my parents and your parents, that generation of parents, they didn't understand what the degree meant.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just thought that if you got a degree, that meant automatic success.
Right.
And what we found out was that some degrees
Yeah.
don't pay.
Yeah.
Right? But us being parents ourselves now, we know a lot more.
Right.
So we have a lot more guidance for our kids. But I never felt that pressure. Like I said earlier, I went back to finish my degree because people kept asking me like, "Hey, did you leave out your
other people
It was
was
other people,
saying you
yeah.
need a
yeah?
degree.
Did you leave
Yeah.
out your education?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"All right, you know what? We'll get it done."
That's too
So.
funny. So now, the ceiling at Stone Stoup, you guys want to expand or integrate different programs?
Oh my
Where are
goodness.
you guys at now? What's the future for Stone Stoup?
The future for Stone Stoup, man, if I had a magic wand, we would expand. We are running out of space. We are actually at our max.
Yeah.
We're bursting at the seam. There are so many different programs that we want to take on, but we really don't have the space. So we've been looking. We've had a couple of opportunities of expansion, but to different sites,
Satellite office?
satellite office or purchasing different buildings. We do have the capacity to purchase larger buildings if we need to right now. But we're kind of at the place of like, okay, we need the people and we need the space. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, if we don't have a new building, we will have another location. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And with expansion and with new programs, with that program that you guys have now, are those programs going to be at this locations too?
I think the program definitely, some programs will, but definitely not all programs will.
Not all programs.
There are just so many different areas of town that we feel other kind of programs would be most beneficial for those. But for sure, Stone Stoup Fresno has always kind of dipped our toes into economic development, but not really immersed ourselves into that. And I truly feel that with this generation of everyone wanting to be a Facebook marketplacer, an influencer, and things of that,
Content creator.
And small business this and small business that, we really need to teach our young people how to be a small business owner, but how to do it in an ethical and in a correct manner, so that when they do get the IRS knocking on their doors, they know that they're a legitimate business.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this before, where the parents that came on board before, they opened businesses and they open, restaurants and they're running, food. I just lost my train. Restaurants, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing it the old school way of shoebox,
Yeah.
and where money in, money out. And then, Henry, or a previous guest, was saying, yeah, you need to learn how to read the P&L and,
Yes.
the cash flow statement. You need to learn where your money is going, because IRS is no joke. They will come knocking, so.
Absolutely. We have we want to bring back our cottage license program, so that a lot of our parents, a lot of the people that love to cook at home, can do it the legal and
Right.
ethical way.
Ethical way.
Yeah, and so we know that economic development, but in a sense that is culturally adaptable, it's going to be very beneficial to our community.
Sure.
So that's definitely an area that has always been the core for me. It's economic development, and we definitely will be looking at ways to participate in that, and ways to make programs like that available to our community. So we've got a lot of plans. Like
Wow.
Stone Stoup is going to grow.
That's
It's
all
a lot of
sounds
plan.
amazing, and
Yeah.
your experience, your leadership, your history with the financial part, and also giving grants on the other end at United Way, that definitely will help Stone Stoup grow as well. And audience, it's been amazing to listen to May Gnia, and the purpose of her really coming on the show is to share with you guys that she's a young Hmong-American woman in this space in leadership. There's really not many, May Gnia, and you're only
Yeah.
one of the few. I can't name another one. Maybe forgive me if there's another Hmong woman out there that's running an organization, but you're one of the very few. So if you were to highlight or share your story with a young woman, or even a man, a young man growing up in that space, can you share, like, you can also be a director one day to lead an organization? Like, how would that inspire somebody? What is your words to them?
The one thing I always tell my young people who wants to get into leadership roles is work to learn. Work to learn. Don't just go to work for a paycheck. You truly have to go to work and say, hey, what does my boss do? What does my accountant do?
Right.
And no matter what your background is, if you go in with the mentality of I'm here to work and learn, you will very, very quickly find yourself in the role of leadership. What a lot of young people don't realize is that your executive directors, your CEOs of these companies, we are really just there to fight for everyone there, to make sure that everybody gets paid. And it's just the operation side of it. And so often we get a lot of program managers, a lot of very niche people that come in that says, hey, I want to be the next ED,
Right.
but I don't want to learn all those stuff. So I always tell people, like, just work to learn. Go to work with the mentality that you're there to do your job, but you're there to also learn. And when you do, I truly feel like the leadership roles just kind of fall into your lap.
Fall into your lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do to unwind? I mean, you're a mom,
Yeah.
you're, executive director,
Yeah.
you're out in the community, you have a family you're raising. What do you do, like, when you leave? Do you have, like, a space you go to and just, like, what, shut the door, I'm going to drink my beer, my wine? What do you do?
I definitely don't drink. You know what? You guys might laugh, but I have very few things that I do for relaxation and for fun, and to really just connect with my own children. So some of the cool things I do outside of work, I love to take pictures. So I've always been an amateur photographer since I was a little kid, since the days of the 110 camera, if you guys remember what that is.
That the one where you roll the camera with it, and then you take
it was
a picture
flat.
and
The
you roll
flash
it.
flip and you
Oh,
flip it out,
yeah,
right?
yeah. that
No,
one.
that's the flip camera. These
Okay.
were like the old Kodak.
Really flat.
110.
Oh,
yeah.
Like a
one.
sandwich,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
an ice cream sandwich toast. Yeah.
I love photography. I've always loved it, and I do that on the side, and for my family. Really, I don't do it. I don't professionally do it. Another area that I like is I love theater arts.
Ooh.
I love theater arts. I love big musicals. I love stage production.
Right.
So I like to get my kids involved in things like that because I love the work and the glamour and the drama behind that.
So what you're trying to say is, if you weren't the executive director of Stone Stoup, you'd be in Hollywood right now.
Yes, I love stage production. And then
Roger Rockets.
yeah, Roger
Yeah,
Rockets. I mean, pageantry, all that stuff. I love stage production.
Oh, nice.
And then the last thing that I do for fun, and I still do, and I probably shouldn't because I'm getting old, is I love to roller skate. I
Oh,
grew up in West Fresno
nice.
where we didn't have a lot of toys,
Yeah.
but I got my first pair of roller skates from Toys for Tots when I was probably like 7 or 8. And to this day, my children and I and my husband will put on our rollerblades, rollerblade around the neighborhood.
That
it's fun.
represented freedom to you at that
It-
time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
When you put it on, you're like, you know what? I'm going anywhere I want to
Yeah.
go, and now it's stuck with you.
I
So
love
you
it.
you remember the Roller Town days then?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I
you
was
were
just
the kid?
there the other day.
Just there.
I was just there, but it's now called United Skates.
Right, in the United States, you know,
Yeah.
it was funny you mentioned that because one of my clients also said, "Yeah, we're going to United Skates." I said, "What is United Skates?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, the skating place in Clovis." I say, "Do you know there used to be called Roller Town?"
Yeah, that was back in my day.
And he
That was
looked
the
at me and he
place to
said,
be
"You-"
back then.
He said, "You must be old, Lucky." I was like, "Ah, yeah, I am old."
Yeah.
Right?
I love it. I love roller skating with my kids and
Yeah.
just trying to stay active.
Just
Yeah.
trying to get out, you know.
Yeah.
These kids nowadays, they just want to stay indoors
Right.
all the time, you know, and getting
Yes.
them out there, roller skating, whatever it is, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
making them active.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I love it. And that's kind of how I unwind. I really do like it. I think that my family in general probably has the most number of photographs because I take so many
But
pictures.
those are
so much.
memories, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we don't really think about that stuff until we get to a point where, like, you know what happened here, and then
Yes.
you think back, you know, it's captured, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, we forget to take pictures.
And I'm
remember
still
these times.
notoriously addicted to printing photos and actually hanging them
really?
up. So if you come over to my house, I still have photos on my wall.
Oh, you do it the old school way.
I do.
Yeah.
You know, everything's so digital now, which is very nice. But I like to actually print things out and put them up on the wall and change them out.
So original. I think that's
Old
beautiful.
school.
You know, yeah.
I remember taking class in college, right? Doing that stuff and being in that dark room.
Developing
and
photos?
developing
Yes.
it. Like,
Really?
Is that
That's
what
such
you do?
an art. I don't develop any. No, that was back in college and high school, and back in like the back in high school we had art, we had photography,
Right, yeah.
we did that. No, I just upload it online. They just mail it to me.
It's convenience now.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, hearing all this, if folks want to volunteer or
Oh, yes.
or get into Stone Stoup to support the cause, how can they reach out to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on Facebook, so it's just
Oh,
Stone
good.
Stoup Fresno on Facebook. Please look us up and like us. We're on our website is stonestoupfresno.com. It is .com. You can also just email us if you want to volunteer. We
Sure.
constantly, now that COVID is lifted, we do have a couple of volunteer projects. In fact, we have an event next Friday that I could use some volunteers. But ongoing, I mean, if you want to work with children, if you want to work with adults, we have volunteer positions for that. And then if you wanted to just support and you have the means to do it,
Yeah.
Discretionary fund, we love to take donations because
Donations.
those are the only funds that we have that are unrestricted,
Yeah.
that we can do other things that it's not restricted to a program.
Yeah, for some of the audience that may not know the term nonprofit, you know,
Yeah.
every dollar stretches out, helps out a program's expenses,
Mm-hmm.
anything that goes to the community. So it definitely helps them out a lot, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really want to take the moment to thank you so much, May Gnia, for joining us on the session. I think this was a beautiful story. We have you are the first Hmong woman to be on our podcast, so that's such a high five right there.
Thank
and,
you.
You know, we're just grateful. Continue doing what you're doing. I think we need more people like you. And I hope that even for the viewers that get to watch this kind of inspires them to kind of want to get into that space, and it's still a lot of hard work, still a lot of gaps in our community, but
Absolutely.
I think this is the part of it where we're sharing our story to uplift and also providing that outlet to say, hey, you can reach to May Gnia to really gain support, in the work that you want to do. So we have tons of other women out there. So Luck and Toby and Sam and Char, we didn't forget some of the ladies out there. So we will be reaching out to you guys on the next session as well, okay?
Thank you.
Any last words, Toby, before we end the session?
No, I think this was a really great session
Yeah.
to see and hear the story, your story, and there are many similar stories, but man, like trying to get people like you on here telling their stories to let people in the audience know that you could do it.
Yeah.
And it's time for us to shine. It's time for us to help each other and and kind of support each other. Say, hey, you could do it. And move forward. And then let's
Absolutely.
make this mark.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So please like, share, subscribe to Now in Session on all platforms. We even have a TikTok now, so hopefully we'll get back
We
into
do?
that. Yeah, we do.
Awesome.
I just found out we have a TikTok, so we're definitely going to be active on that. So we appreciate you guys' support. Hit that notification, hit the bell sign, and be watching out for May Gnia on the next episode as we upload it sometime this week. Thank you guys so
All right,
much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Peace.